Hello and welcome to the next session of the Foundation of Your Digital Transformation. We'll be making a wide-ranging tour of what organizations have gone through in the last year and what we're going to be facing in 2021 and beyond. So my name is Diane Hinchcliffe. I'm VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research. I'm a ZDNet columnist and a best-selling technology book author, and I work with CIOs around the world, and I'll be telling you the story about what I'm seeing with organizations, what IT shifts they're making, and how they're applying proven platforms like Domino to what they're doing to get a lot more value out of IT. And so most of us know this story. We've lived it the last year. 2020 was just a very disruptive year for our organizations. We had to digitally transform both work as well as our customer experiences. There was a massive shift in just 2 or 3 weeks to remote work. Trying to make it secure, trying to keep remote workers productive. Most of all, trying to support them. We'll see that our challenges when we deploy a lot of new technologies and work in a very different way, all of a sudden, it creates enormous challenges. And so we need to have stronger foundations for the things that are going to be coming. We'll talk about what those things are in just a moment. We've also seen a real desire to get more out of our development processes. How can we enlarge the envelope, get more people involved, create more productive output? And so I was giving a keynote at a CIO event late last year, and afterwards we were talking in the Zoom session, and I had CIOs from large companies talking to me for the very first time that I can remember about things like low code, trying to get a lot more value and move much faster with a shortage of talent. How do we do that? So low code is a very hot discussion. Even pro coders are doing it, as we'll talk about. So that was one of the major trends last year. We also saw that many organizations used the cloud to address a lot of the challenges of 2020. How do we support and get a lot of workers productive remotely? Well, cloud delivery is the way to do that. Was the way to do that for most organizations. And in fact, I've talked to over 200 CIOs since this all began. The ones that were already out in the cloud had substantial investments, did a lot better. They had the agility, they had the elasticity, the sudden capacity to be able to shift a lot of people into new places and still keep them working without having to deploy a lot of servers. So moving to the cloud, but in a way that really supports the way the organizations work. And then the other thing we saw was customers changed their habits as well. The way that they wanted to be serviced in these digital channels shifted as well. And so we had the digital transformation of customer experiences. I saw the mortgage companies suddenly going to all digital delivery. We saw telehealth become a really big deal in 2020 because we're trying to figure out how to use digital to circumvent the challenges of the global pandemic. The consumer expectations are higher than they've ever been. We know what it should look like. We've seen great examples of digital in our personal lives, and now we demand the same thing from our businesses. And that put, with the sudden shift of millions of consumers into these new digital channels, put a lot of pressure on IT organizations to deliver great there too. So both work, the entire workplace, and most of our customer bases now wanted to be serviced in digital channels in brand new ways. That was disruption. And so the good news is, we learned to adopt and thrive for the most part. Most organizations successfully made the transition in a short amount of time. That's incredible. It shows that we can digitally transform in short periods of time if we have the will. And of course, we have a lot of work to do because we did it very hastily. In 2021, we've got to remediate and improve a lot of what we did, make it sustainable, make it something that will thrive long term. And so we're going to learn from the mistakes and decisions we made last year, what worked and what didn't. And we're going to rebound on a resilient new foundation that looks a lot like our old foundation for many of us. We're seeing great advances there. And so I work a lot with CIOs, as I mentioned. And so I did a survey. I conducted a survey late last year to understand what CIOs and what the IT department was going to invest in this year. And what were their really concerns? What were the blockers that they were facing that were worried most about? And one of the top ones was having this brittle foundation that's partially cloud, a lot of legacy platforms from different vendors, that wasn't really ready for agility, wasn't really ready for transformation. Real concern that they didn't have the pieces in place to keep going fast in the right direction. We were going fast. We did that well, and now we have to do it in a sustainable fashion on a better foundation, and that's what CIOs want. They're also worried about talent. Do I have enough development capacity to realize all of these new work solutions and all of these new customer experiences? And so there's this real concern about having inadequate skills and talent. The shelf life of an IT skill has gone down to as little as 18 months in many cases. And so how do we continually renew workers? How do we give them platforms that are much easier, more streamlined, more accelerating and enabling, right? That's the low code discussion. And then this real concern about disjointed experiences from work from home. We're making employees have to figure out a lot of this themselves. We gave some training, but working remotely, as all of us know, is not quite the same as working in the office, no matter what technology we provide. And so how do we create more seamless collaboration? How do we create mass collaboration across the organization? That's the concern that CIOs have right now and are looking to address in 2021. Along the way, with all these things that are happening around the world, we see new market signals clearly emerging. A lot of this is from my CIO survey I conducted late last year. A real desire to reimagine employee experiences and customer experiences in a way that will take us into the future. So we as I mentioned, we took some shortcuts. We took on some technical debt. Now we have time this year and budget. Many of us have set aside the funds to say, let's really invest in employee experience. Let's really invest in customer experiences. In fact, my survey said in the first 6 months of this year, most CIOs were expecting to have achieved a lot of that. Now we know that with the ongoing challenges and the rise of what we call hybrid work, we're going to have to merge and somehow successfully collaborate with the remote workers that we have and the office workers. Some of us are going to go back. How do we make sure there's not a gap between them? So we need to reimagine how we work. And so the simple mantra for that is we have to create enabling digital experiences that we can provide and deliver anywhere from any digital channel or device. That's the vision that we see most digital leaders are looking for, some version of that. They also want to make sure they're not building that brittle foundation and continuing what they already have. There's this major discussion now around this concept of cloud native. It's the architecture that's evolved naturally on the cloud. It's not based on traditional enterprise IT. It's more like Kubernetes and containers. And there's a whole new stack. I'll be writing a lot about this in the near future. A whole stack has emerged that's really this cloud native concept. And to build upon that, we want to get to this right cloud architecture somehow. Maybe our vendors can help us and migrate us naturally with the platforms we already use to cloud native. We'll be talking a lot about that this week. But we then want to make massive investments in things like low code on top of this cloud native foundation to digitize and to automate what we have. In fact, when I ask CIOs, the number one way they're going to get more with less this year, it's through things like automation. We'll look at that data in just a moment. And so this concept of driving enterprise efficiency with low code, there's 26 times more non-coders than coders. So the premise now, we're starting to understand we're never going to digitally transform at scale unless we can get more people helping us change their part of the organization. And low code will always need IT's help to put the guardrails and keep the data safe. But we can digitize our businesses with low code in a far more scalable and cost-effective fashion than we have before. Even pro coders can do a lot of their work with that to get more out of it. And so this move towards cloud-native architectures and away from inflexible IT that's based on legacy investments that just aren't going to propel us in the future. These are the signals that we broadly see. And so if we look at the top challenges of remote work, I asked CIOs, well, what were they? What difficulties did you run into? And it's this concept of we move everybody to a new place. They're working out of their home. They're using their own network, which is an infrastructure we didn't build, we didn't control, we didn't quality manage. And we give them new applications and complicated tools like VPN to get into what they're doing. And so they reported almost half of CIOs said they were their biggest challenge was supporting and enabling all of these remote workers all of a sudden. And this is an ongoing challenge. I did a separate survey to the actual workers themselves and said, well, do you think IT has what they need? Do they have the right platforms and solutions to be able to fully support you? And over 70% felt that they didn't have everything that they need. So we have more work to do this year to build out remote work, because not everybody's going to go back. It's probably never going to go back to the way it was. We're going to have a larger remote work cohort, and we're going to have now an in-office cohort. And we've got to now make one more transformation to build a better vision that connects those two, so that the in-office workers don't leave behind the remote workers, of which we'll have a lot more. So IT was the bottleneck last year to providing the tools and support. And we have to find this year the right models for enabling work on the web, on mobile, and other channels to really provide workers with what they need to succeed. And hybrid work is a challenge. Anyone says that they know all the answers for how we're going to create an ideal hybrid work environment, it just is not the case. We don't know yet what's really going to work, although we have some clues. Some of this is, let's build a cloud native, much more agile foundation, so that when we do have to make adjustments to this new hybrid work environment, we can work well. So when I asked the CIOs, what are you going to do this year and beyond to go faster, do more, automation stood head and shoulders as the clearest signal, second clearest signal in the entire survey. We'll see the clearest one here shortly. Is this desire to automate things like low code. Absolutely be the foundation, probably the easiest technology you have to automate a process, right? To integrate with a bunch of systems, to send data to them and carry out business processes, and to enable anyone, a business analyst, a power user, to do this. We really see this democratization of automation is one of the biggest trends, low code being the anchor for that. And then adding artificial intelligence features that automate things like RPA, robotic process automation, are big, but it's all the flavors. But I would argue the one that's going to be the most democratized, that's going to be in the most people's hands, is going to be low code. The second biggest signal out of this question was, all right, we're going to automate, but we're also going to make IT more self-service. We can't be in the middle of every piece of IT delivery that we have. That doesn't scale. As everything in the business becomes digitized, we're going to have to make it self-service, be able to have workers pull the applications that they need to them, new ones maybe, that we've provided additional choice for, saying, well, if that's not the absolute best CRM tool, maybe this is the best one. Or if you need to automate something, here is a low-code toolkit, some training videos, and a support community inside our organization that will really help you. So more self-service IT is the other really big desire. And of course, we want to train workers, and we want to provide them the skills. In fact, CIOs realize, and this was really clear in the survey too, that if we don't also bring up the skill level of both IT and our workers, we're not going to get everything we can get out of these platforms that we have. That's a real significant challenge. Have incredible capabilities that we don't tap into. And so I've gone on record saying that low code is essential to the transformation of our organizations, the digital and business transformation, both. With low code, we can quickly create hundreds of inexpensive applications per year that meet all sorts of dynamic needs and demands. And now it's so inexpensive to develop a solution. You have a project that's doing something special, and you have got a couple weeks, you can build an application to support it, and you can afford to throw it away if you need to, if it's not worth supporting and maintaining long term. That's not really an option when you're outsourcing application development or trying to do it yourself the old pro code way. And so instead of taking weeks or months to create solutions for many types of business problems, it only takes hours or days to create these. And when you do it on a common platform, it's manageable, governable. You have data security all in one place. You can do application lifecycle management, so you can manage hundreds of applications that are servicing your business that are coming and going as their relevance waxes and wanes. And so we see that low-code platforms are highly integration-centric. They know how to. Many of them have hundreds of integrations out of the box. And so they're inherently agile in that an average person can sit down, drag and drop what they need, point and click to the systems that they want. I've done this myself. I know that this is real. I still run into a lot of people who don't believe point and click integration is here. Well, it has been here for a little while, but now it's here in a big way the last couple of years. And so we can do this. IT and professional developers can use this to get a lot more out of the time that they have. They can get 5 to 10 times more done in a low-code environment that has a lot of integrations than they can doing it the old way. And there is a little bit of a learning curve, but we can make it. And now this is such a common activity. Becoming a really high-end low coder has a lot of market value too. And then citizen developers and business users, they have a big role in this as well. In fact, I'd argue that's the secret. When I see IT rolling out low code, it's often only to IT. And that's a big missed opportunity. There's a way to let low code out in a controlled manner to the right people inside your organization who are, liable to be able to use this to move away from the spreadsheet model that they are using now for low code, which is very hard to support, is very error prone, doesn't have all of the management and governance capabilities we're looking for. We can give citizen developers these tools to do much more. And it's an order of magnitude acceleration in many cases to getting solutions to the ground and making IT self-service, driving automation into the business at scale, transforming, giving these capable users powerful tools to digitize their corner of the organization, but on our platforms so that we can see what's going on. We can secure it. We have the guardrails on it. So it's a very exciting time. We just have to change our mindset about where the innovation is coming from, who's doing the core of solutions development. So it's very interesting what we're able to do now. Hello and welcome back. These are the kinds of things we've gotten used to in the age of remote work. So we're talking about modern cloud architecture. That's what organizations are now seeking increasingly to move to. So instead of taking their legacy enterprise architecture and just lifting it and shifting it into the cloud, they're looking and saying, what approaches are being used out there that are cloud native? And this is so important because the number of systems that have been migrated to the cloud, IT systems and applications, has fallen way behind workloads. Business workloads in the cloud are growing faster than the number of systems we're migrating because that's difficult to do. And so we see new cloud rollouts are growing much more successfully. They're getting a larger share of actual processing time. But we're seeing the steady migration. 12% of the world last year was on cloud, and this year 15% are because of the big shifts in the migration in the pandemic. Has really made us migrate a lot more than we have before. So we still have a long way to go in terms of the number of systems we have to migrate to the cloud. We probably will not migrate all of them, but the argument is by 2030, if you look at many different industry analysis, the majority of IT, probably about 90% for the average organization, will be in the cloud. So you have 10 years left of work to do. And wouldn't it be nice if we did this the right way from the beginning? So lifting and shifting IT and taking the old architecture into the new runtime environment just isn't seen as a way of doing that. It creates technical debt. We still have to go back and migrate those applications. And so when possible, and things like low code make that possible, we can migrate these systems, often just by feature replicating them, right into the cloud using cloud native architectures. And so that's the end game, is to invest in platforms that will take you into the future long term and will leave you the least amount of technical debt that you have to go back and clean up later. And so the shortest and most future-proof route is to double down on proven but fast evolving cloud platforms. And turns out a lot of things we have are becoming cloud native right underneath us. And we have to realize that they're continuing to evolve and they're continuing to grow. And so moving to a modern cloud architecture is a high priority in many IT organizations, even though it's not clear the best way to get there. And when I asked, maybe I want too many slides here. So when I asked organizations what their top 5 IT priorities for their organization in 2021, digital transformation came out head and shoulders above everything else, except for cybersecurity. We've all seen the challenges what we faced in the world the last year. The SolarWinds hack, the Colonial Pipeline ransomware. We have to have much higher cybersecurity than we've had before. And the end game is really something called zero trust that allows us to reassemble our IT systems into zones of trust that are far more contained. And the belief is we'll get there. In fact, I was giving a keynote at the RSA security event last year before all this started, and I noted that insider attacks, where cyber attackers actually have to pay someone for user IDs and passwords, is the big growth area, because our IT systems are getting more secure. They're getting more locked down. The bad guys are having to find new and innovative ways to get around us, and so we have to build on platforms that have high maturity in terms of their security capabilities where that's proven. And so we see cybercrime is increasing 12% a year, and the average breach costs organizations right around $4 million to clean up and to remediate. And so the focus now is to build on the most secure platforms that we can. And many of those are ones that we already have, of course. And so another big focus for IT leaders is getting more returns from the IT that you already have in hand today, right? So, we want to get, more automation out of what we're doing. We want to use untapped but high leverage capabilities and features inside of our existing IT tools. Some of that's going to be training and just understanding what we really have, what we're building on. And we see that using solutions that maximize IT adoption and uptake. There's a big focus in the IT industry around something called digital adoption. Wouldn't it be nice if we could get more people to use the more powerful capabilities of our applications? Some of that requires training, and some of that we're seeing vendors actually put into the platforms themselves. How can they recast these? How can they adjust the user interfaces? Or how can they use things like low code to build solutions that are streamlined, that maybe don't have all the bells and whistles, or maybe they have those special capabilities surfaced and put more in front of the users so that they're taking advantage of these more powerful capabilities. And so digital adoption is a big focus area. And so to do this, to get started, to transform, we must replace the core IT systems we've had for a while. Maybe that's one path. Or you can build on the strongest core systems. And for you Domino users, I'm looking at you. We see that the future-ready solutions can be built on platforms like Domino that stand the test of time. So what have we learned? What can we really take away if we had to really boil down the lessons of 2020? Probably the biggest one is we have to be able to do more with less. And it's not necessarily that we have less IT. We're going to have more IT than we've ever had before. We're going to have 1,000 flowers blooming inside of our organizations with things like low code and citizen development. Every corner of our organization will be digitized. And so doing more, that's the doing more part. And the IT is not going to grow in response to the size of that IT is going to, the digitization part is going to grow. And so that's where we have to work much smarter, using platforms that have high leverage built right inside of them. And we need technology that's easier to adopt and to shape and to mold into our organizations. One size fits all was the mantra for many years, because we learned in IT that customization was bad. It was hard to maintain, and it fell behind when we upgraded. And that's just not true anymore. I've seen now best of breed and mix and match come back. And a lot of that's because we can integrate together so much more easily. We can shape our IT into what we need, and shape the same IT in different parts of our organization. So, what accounting needs is probably not what sales needs. Those are organizations, departments with two very different views and ways that they work. And wouldn't it be great if we could take our platforms and shape them for those audiences? Or we can shape them for remote workers as we learn what they really need, or hybrid workers, and so on. And that automation is perhaps the biggest tool we have to shrink time to value. And time to value is the big metric that we're using today to determine if we're getting, if we're comparing two investments and we're using them the way that they're designed, which one has the shortest time to value and cost to value too. So we look at that whole equation, and we see that that things like low code and RPA and things like that are doing that. And this allows us to get more out of existing investments. We are trying to reduce the number of duplicate applications that we have to some extent. And that means digging deeper inside of our existing platforms to get more. And so these are really the key lessons learned. So I'm a professional industry analyst, and I take a look at solutions all the time. I've been tracking HCL Domino before, well before the HCL heritage. And it's great to see the V12 release this week. But I really have to say it's clear now that Domino is not a legacy platform. It was a legacy platform for a while, but we now see a resurgence in R&D. We see it moving into the future, into these new cloud-native sustainable architectures. It's been reborn in many ways, but without leaving its old customers behind. It's a cloud platform that has many of the capabilities we talked about here. It has automation and low-code features, flexible deployment, everything that you really need to have. Allows you to achieve what I was talking about before, better application experiences anywhere you need to put them. And that's really what, as we digitally transform work and digitally transform customer experience, that's what we really need to have. And so, Domino was always a platform that people could build apps with, but you still had to have some skills to do it. But increasingly, almost anyone can use it to do all the things that we talked about here in this talk. And so I'm glad to see it's continued to. Domino was a breakthrough before many others were in the industry, and now we're seeing it's taking us into the future. All right, so I hope you found that a useful perspective, the big picture on where organizations are going to go in 2021 and beyond. Cloud native, lots of automation, highly secure, using proven platforms that will take us into the future.